He gave them each ₦1,000,000 to see their true nature, but what his housekeeper did with the money didn't just change his life. It saved his soul and showed him what real love looks like. A Nigerian oil magnate, tired of being surrounded by users and pretenders, gives 3 women unlimited access to his wealth. What they choose reveals everything about their hearts, and leads him to a love more precious than crude oil. The Harmattan wind swept across the sprawling compound in Victoria Island, Lagos, carrying with it the scent of the Atlantic and the distant sounds of the bustling metropolis below. Emeka Okafor stood on the marble balcony of his penthouse, watching the sun dip toward the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples that rivaled any sunset in the world. From up here, Lagos looked beautiful, the gleaming towers of the financial district, the luxury hotels dotting the coastline, the yachts bobbing in the harbor. But Emeka knew the truth that lay beneath the glitter. He had built his empire from nothing, turning a small oil services company into a multinational corporation that employed thousands across West Africa. The magazines called him Africa's youngest billionaire. Forbes featured him on their cover. Presidents sought his counsel. But at 38, standing alone on his balcony with a glass of aged whiskey in his hand, Emeka felt hollower than the day he had started with nothing but determination and a borrowed pickup truck in Port Harcourt. "Sir, your dinner is ready," came a soft voice from behind him. Emeka turned to see Adunni, his housekeeper, standing respectfully at the edge of the balcony. She wore a simple Ankara dress in muted blues and whites, her hair wrapped in a matching head wrap. Her eyes, warm and kind, never quite met his directly, a sign of the respect she maintained despite having worked in his home for 3 years. "Thank you, Adunni. I'll be down shortly." She nodded and disappeared as quietly as she had come, leaving behind only the faint scent of the native soap she used, something earthy and clean that reminded him of his grandmother's house in Enugu. Emeka remained on the balcony, his mind drifting to the conversation he'd had with his father before the old man passed away 5 years ago. "My son," his father had wheezed from his hospital bed, "wealth without wisdom is like a river without banks, it destroys everything in its path. Find someone who sees your heart, not your bank account. The woman who will love you when you have nothing is the woman who deserves everything." Those words haunted him now. Because looking at his life, Emeka wasn't sure anyone saw past the Rolls-Royce, the private jet, the houses in London and Dubai, the oil wells that pumped millions into his accounts every month. There was Kemi, his girlfriend of 2 years. Beautiful, sophisticated, with an MBA from London School of Economics. Every man envied him when they walked into a room together. But her affection seemed tied directly to his latest business success. When deals fell through, so did her warmth. Then there was Funmi, his executive assistant, brilliant and ambitious. She had helped him navigate complex deals, saved him from costly mistakes. But lately he'd noticed how she positioned herself in photos with him, how she introduced herself as his close business partner at events, how she had been networking with his competitors while claiming loyalty to him. And there was Adunni. Quiet, hard-working Adunni who never asked for anything beyond her salary. When he had offered to pay for her younger brother's university fees after overhearing a phone conversation about the boy's academic struggles, she had politely declined. "It's not your burden to carry, sir. We will find a way." Who does that in today's world? That night, Emeka made a decision that would change everything. He called his head of security, Chike, a former military man who had served him faithfully for 5 years. "Chike, I need you to do something for me." Very quietly. "Yes, sir. I'm going to give 3 women access to significant funds. I want full monitoring, transactions, locations, everything. But discreetly. No invasion of privacy, just financial tracking." There was a pause. "Understood, sir. May I ask why?" Emeka stared out at the twinkling lights of Lagos. "I need to know who I can trust with my heart." The next morning, Emeka met Kemi at the Wheat Baker Hotel for brunch. She arrived in a red Porsche, a gift he had given her for her birthday, wearing a white off-shoulder dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Her long weave was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless, her nails freshly done in French tips. "Baby," she said, kissing him on both cheeks in the European fashion she had adopted since her London years. You look stressed. Is everything okay with the Abuja deal? Emeka smiled tightly. Even her concern was business-focused. The deal is fine. Actually, I wanted to give you something. He slid the black card across the table. Her eyes lit up immediately. What's this? A gift. No limits. Spend whatever you want for the next 3 days. Consider it a token of my appreciation for being in my life. Kemi's perfectly manicured fingers trembled slightly as she picked up the card. Are you serious? No limits. None. She squealed, drawing looks from the other wealthy patrons of the restaurant. Oh my God, Emeka. This is incredible. I love you so much. She was already texting her friends before the conversation was over. Emeka watched her, noting how she hadn't asked why he was giving it to her, hadn't questioned the unusual nature of the gift. She had simply accepted it as her due. 2 hours later, at his office in the gleaming Okafor Tower on Victoria Island, Funmi walked in with her usual efficiency. She wore a sharp navy blazer with matching trousers, her natural hair styled in an elegant afro. Her confidence filled the room. The Petroleum Ministry meeting went well, she reported, placing a folder on his desk. The minister is very interested in our renewable energy proposal. I think we can get the tax incentives we need. Excellent work, Emeka said, then reached into his desk drawer. I have something for you. Funmi raised an eyebrow as he handed her the second card. What's this for? Your hard work. Your dedication. You've earned it. She examined the card carefully, her business mind clearly calculating. This is very generous, Emeka. Very generous indeed. You've been invaluable to me, Funmi. Take a few days. Enjoy yourself. A slow smile spread across her face. Thank you. I know exactly how to make the most of this opportunity. Something in her tone made Emeka's chest tighten, but he kept his expression neutral. That evening, Emeka found Adunni in the kitchen, preparing his dinner. The space smelled of pepper soup and fresh bread. She moved with quiet efficiency, her movements graceful despite the simple nature of her tasks. Adunni, he called softly. She turned, wiping her hands on her apron. Yes, sir? He held out the third card. This is for you. Her brow furrowed as she stared at the card as if it might bite her. Sir, I don't understand. Have I done something wrong? Emeka almost smiled. The same fear Mirabelle had expressed in the original story. No, you've done everything right. This is a thank you. For 3 years of faithful service, for taking care of my home like it was your own. But sir, you already pay me well. More than fairly. I don't need. I know you don't need it. That's why I want you to have it. Take 3 days. Do something for yourself for once. Adunni stared at the card for a long moment, then looked up at him with those warm brown eyes that always seemed to see too much. I don't know how to spend money like this, sir. Then don't spend it like me. Spend it like you. That night, Chaik sent his first report. Kemi had spent the equivalent of $50,000 at the Palm shopping mall in Lekki, buying designer clothes, shoes, and jewelry. She had booked a suite at the Eco Hotel for a party she was planning, complete with a live band and catering for 200 people. Her Instagram stories showed her posing with shopping bags, hashtags like hashtag blessed and favored and hashtag living my best life. She hadn't called to thank him. Not once. Funmi's day had been more strategic. She had visited several high-end boutiques, but her purchases were calculated, business attire, expensive accessories that screamed success. She had booked herself into the most exclusive spa in Lagos, then made reservations at Sky Restaurant for dinner with 3 executives from competing oil companies. Chaik's report noted, she introduced herself as your business partner and intimate advisor. Seemed to be positioning herself as your successor or equal. Emeka's jaw tightened. Even her gratitude was an investment. But it was Adunni's report that made him stop breathing. She had taken a Danfo bus, a public transport bus, to the Alaba International Market. There she had bought bags of rice, beans, gari and palm oil. Then she had visited the children's ward at Lagos University Teaching Hospital, where she quietly paid the medical bills for 3 families whose children were receiving treatment for malnutrition and malaria. The receipt showed she had barely spent 200,000 naira, less than $500. But that wasn't all. She had gone to her neighborhood in Mushin, where she lived in a modest one-bedroom apartment. There, she had gathered several children from her street and taken them to a nearby store, where she bought each of them school supplies, uniforms, and shoes for the new term. The surveillance photos showed her kneeling on the dusty street, helping a small boy try on new sneakers, her face radiant with joy as his face lit up. That evening she had cooked a large pot of jollof rice and chicken, then distributed it to the homeless people who slept under the eco bridge. She had sat with them sharing the meal, listening to their stories. No cameras. No social media posts. No audience except those she was helping. Emeka stared at the photos until his vision blurred. In one image, Adunni was holding a sick baby whose mother couldn't afford formula. In another, she was teaching a group of street children to read using books she had bought. In the final photo, she was fast asleep on her small sofa, still wearing her clothes from the day, exhausted from giving. She had used his money to love others. The next morning, Emeka couldn't concentrate on work. The updates from Chike kept coming. Kemi's party had turned into a social media spectacle. She had hired professional photographers, posted constantly about her amazing boyfriend who spoiled her, treated the waiters poorly, and ended the night by announcing to her 50,000 Instagram followers that she was living proof that good girls get the best men. Funmi had spent the day networking with his business rivals, positioning herself as the key to accessing him and his resources. She had taken detailed notes on his business strategies and seemed to be building her own contact list for when she eventually left his company. But Adunni had returned to work as if nothing had happened, preparing his breakfast with the same quiet care she always showed. When he had asked her if she had enjoyed her time off, she had simply smiled and said, "Thank you for letting me help some people, sir." It felt good. She hadn't kept a single thing for herself. That evening, Emeka invited all three women to dinner at his home. The dining room had never felt so large or so tense. Crystal glasses caught the light from the chandelier his mother had chosen years ago. The table was set with his grandmother's china, the only pieces that had survived their humble beginnings. Kemi arrived in a new gold dress that probably cost more than a car, her hair freshly done, her nails now sporting diamond accents. She took photos of everything including her plate. Funmi came in a power suit that screamed ambition, her makeup perfect, her smile practiced. Adunni had changed from her work clothes into a simple but elegant Ankara dress in earth tones. She sat quietly, clearly uncomfortable with the formal setting. "Ladies," Emeka began, his voice steady despite the storm in his chest. "3 days ago, I gave each of you unlimited access to my resources. Tonight, I want to discuss what happened." The room went silent. Kemi stopped photographing her food. Funmi's practiced smile faltered. Adunni's eyes widened with worry. "This was a test," he continued. "Not to trick you but to understand you. To see who you really are when you think no one is watching." Kemi's face flushed. "You spied on us?" "I observed you," Emeka corrected. "I watched how you chose to use freedom." He turned to Kemi first. "You spent 2 million naira in 2 days. Designer clothes, jewelry, a party for people I've never met. You posted about your generous boyfriend, but never once called to say thank you. You treated service workers poorly and acted as if luxury was your birthright." Kemi's mouth fell open. You said no limits? You told me to enjoy myself." "I did. And you showed me exactly what brings you joy. It isn't me. It's what I can buy you." She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the marble floor. "This is insane. You're crazy if you think I'm going to sit here and be judged for enjoying the gifts my boyfriend gives me." "Ex-boyfriend," Emeka said quietly. Her face contorted with rage. "You'll regret this, Emeka. Do you know how many men would kill to have me? You just lost the best thing that ever happened to you." She stormed out, her heels echoing through the house until the front door slammed. Emeka turned to Funmi, who was sitting very still, her business mind clearly calculating her next move. "Funmi," he said. "You were smarter. More strategic. You used the money to position yourself professionally, to build networks with my competitors." Her chin lifted slightly. "Networking isn't a crime, Emeka. I've given you 5 years of my life, help build your empire. If I want to secure my own future, that's smart business. It would be, he agreed, if you hadn't used my resources to do it while still on my payroll. If you hadn't positioned yourself as my equal to people who are trying to compete with me. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, you've made your choice, haven't you? The simple village girl who makes you feel like a good person. Adunni flinched as if she'd been slapped. Don't, Emeka's voice turned cold, speak about her that way. Funmi stood gracefully, adjusting her blazer. I hope you'll be happy with your charity case, Emeka. But don't come crying to me when you realize that being noble doesn't mean being smart. She left with more dignity than Kemi, but the sting of her words lingered in the air. Emeka turned to Adunni, who was staring at her hands folded in her lap. I'm sorry you had to hear that, he said gently. She's not wrong, Adunni whispered. I'm just a village girl. I don't belong in this world. Emeka moved his chair closer to hers. Do you know what you did with the money? She nodded, still not looking up. I know it wasn't what you expected. I know rich people don't spend money on strangers and street children. You're right, he said. They don't. You fed hungry children. You paid medical bills for families who couldn't afford them. You bought school supplies for kids whose parents worked 3 jobs just to pay rent. You used my money to love people who couldn't give you anything in return. Finally, she looked up at him, tears glistening in her eyes. That's just how my grandmother raised me. She always said that when you have more than you need, you share it. It's not mine to keep. Emeka felt something break open in his chest. And that's why it had to be you. What had to be me? He reached across the table and took her hands. They were small and work-worn with short, unpolished nails. They were the most beautiful hands he had ever held. My heart, he said simply. It had to be you. Adunni stared at him in shock. Sir, you can't mean. I mean every word. I've spent my whole adult life surrounded by people who see dollar signs when they look at me. You see a person. You see someone worth caring about, not someone worth using. But I'm your employee. I'm not educated like the other women. I don't know how to be rich. You know how to be good, Emeka said, his voice thick with emotion. In a world full of people trying to take, you give. In a world full of people performing for cameras, you love in private. You don't know how to be rich, Adunni, but you know how to be wealthy in the ways that matter. She was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. I don't understand what's happening. Emeka stood up and knelt beside her chair, still holding her hands. I'm asking you to let me love you the way you love everyone else, completely without expecting anything in return. I'm asking you to teach me how to be as good as you are. I'm not good, she protested. I'm just trying to do what's right. That's what makes you perfect. For a long moment, they sat in the golden light of the chandelier, surrounded by the remnants of the dinner that had changed everything. Outside, Lagos hummed with its endless energy, millions of people chasing their dreams in the city of hustle and hope. But inside the house, in the quiet space between heartbeats, a billionaire learned that the greatest treasure isn't found in oil wells or bank accounts. It's found in the heart of someone who chooses kindness over comfort, love over luxury, and service over selfishness. 6 months later, Emeka and Adunni were married in a small ceremony in her village in Osun State. She wore her grandmother's wedding dress, simple and elegant. He wore a traditional agbada that his father had worn to his own wedding. The reception was held in the village square, with the entire community invited. Instead of expensive gifts, the couple asked their guests to contribute to a scholarship fund for local children. Kemi sent an angry message on social media about how she had dodged a bullet with a man who couldn't appreciate a real woman. Funmi started her own consulting firm and was moderately successful, though she never quite reached the heights she had dreamed of. But Emeka and Adunni built something more valuable than business empires or social media fame. They built a love based on mutual respect, shared values, and the understanding that true wealth isn't measured in naira and kobo, but in the lives you touch and the love you give. And every morning, as Emeka watched his wife tend to their garden, sharing vegetables with neighbors and teaching their children to read, he knew his father had been right. The woman who would love him when he had nothing was indeed the woman who deserved everything. And she had been there all along, quiet and faithful, waiting not for him to notice her, but for him to notice what really mattered. In the end, the oil baron's greatest discovery wasn't underground. It was in the heart of a woman who showed him that the most precious things in life can't be bought, only given freely from one heart to another.